Welcome back to ASBhive Podcast Impact Series. Together, we have a special guest in the house. It's Madiha Fuad from PlusVibe. You want to say hi to?
Hello, hi, excited to be here. Thank you, Reza.
All right. So today, it's a bit unique because she's our first female guest for the podcast. So that's why the topic for today is going to dwell into the woman in social impact scene, as well on mental health. Maybe as a start, maybe you can share more about your company PlusVibe. What is PlusVibe, and how do you start PlusVibe?
Sure. So, PlusVibes is a mental health platform. We started off as a mobile application, but since then, over the span of 3 years, it's grown. We do training programs, we do wellness events, we do wellness retreats. And to be honest, I never imagined we would do that. I always thought it would be just the mobile application. Why we started? I got into an accident and I was semi-paralyzed. And at that time, I was thinking, okay, mental health therapy is so expensive, $250 an hour, physio some more. And for a whole year, I couldn't move. It was really costly. And when you've been an entrepreneur for the past 10 years, automatically your mind will think, how can I solve this problem?
Exactly.
I had that victim mindset at first, but then I kept on reading. I kept on looking for motivational quotes, all these kind of programs. And that's when me and my team we were thinking, okay, let's do an app. Mm-hmm. Connecting all the counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, campaigners, life coaches on the app. Now we have 300 vibers, we call them, someone who shares their vibes with you, but are professionals. And we have over 50,000 users. So that's the journey from just a vision, a struggle, and then embarking on actually creating a solution.
Yeah. But you mentioned you already been 10 years. But is PlusVibe 10 years or PlusVibe like PlusVibe
3 years?
3?
Yes.
So you're kind of like a seasoned entrepreneur in a way.
Well, I don't know if you want to call food truck.
It's still running a business. So
Yes.
maybe even before we go into the social impact scene, right? I want to understand more because you said 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And for me, because even social impact is less than 10 years, I can see a lot of changes.
True.
Because when I started myself, it was struggling because there's not enough ecosystem support. And you, 10 years ago, you started a business, being a woman in entrepreneurship. I think even right now we can see, I wouldn't say it's already like grow big. It's growing. We can see more and more. But 10 years ago, I'm pretty sure it's not as big as now. How do you train yourself or survive, or how do you learn? How do you grow as a woman in entrepreneurship at that time?
So that time it was 2014, right? And I was 24 years old, right? So that time my parents were like, no, stay at the edge. I was a business writer, but I got inspired by all the CEOs. And I was like, I want to do my own food truck. And then I want to expand to a cafe. We did expand to a cafe in Wan Utama. I think the crux of it was me going back and doing my MBA.
Okay.
Why? Because my degree was in journalism, right? So that's why I went into business journalism.
Yep.
And then I was like, okay, I go back into my MBA. I learn all the basic marketing, P&L, all these kind of things. And that gave me that basis of how do you run a company. But still, there's always the risk part. If you have that fear in taking risk, you won't succeed as an entrepreneur because it's all about taking risk.
Exactly.
Pitching to different clients, accepting that rejection, and then expanding, compiling all the funds and then expanding into opening a cafe in Wanutama. It's risk. You don't know if it's going to work, but it's always about whether you believe in yourself. And then I did my PhD in employability and mental health, and that was when I went through the accident. So I guess the journey throughout it was whether I was willing to take the risk or not, and it was about the basic education system. I don't think then there were a lot of programs like there are now. There were none. So to get funded or to pitch was like a dream, which never happened anyway. So when we started with PlusVibes, it was something new for me. Pitching, we pitched at Taraju, we pitched for Yes and Hasana, we pitched for a lot of different accelerator programs. You recommended Young Founders Program, Westerwell, for me. I pitched there. It was an amazing learning opportunity. And I feel that's what really accelerated my growth and made me have a better understanding about the startup ecosystem.
Basically, you're talking about creating the ecosystem, the support system,
Correct.
like connection. Because of course, if you're not in a particular ecosystem of a group, you won't know about programs available, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about pitch clinics and things like that. It's something like, I do agree with you. 10 years ago, it's not much around right now. It's good. I mean, it's good for the ecosystem. But also talking into the angle of like, of course, it seems that the stars are aligned for you because you just mentioned you take PhD in mental health.
I know,
And then
right?
out of sudden, I mean, not
Well,
to say the accident is
It was employability, though. It was
Yeah.
focusing on the gig economy that everyone wanted to be entrepreneurs.
Yes.
But what affects you is your confidence.
Yeah,
It's your
yeah.
self-efficacy, your mental health. You can be an entrepreneur. You can pitch for projects and be a freelancer. But if you're not confident, if you don't have that
Exactly.
self-efficacy, so I kind of like believed in that. And suddenly that happened. And I was like, okay.
I think the keyword is to start actually, because once you start, you kind of feel like, so the way I see it, like when even myself, when I delve into new things or doing things, you have to start. Because when you start, number one, it opened the floodgate, right? People will be like, hey, they want to support you. I think one thing about being entrepreneurship, I think same in the woman in the social impact or normal business, is when you start, people want to help you as much as they can. Of course, there's going to be naysayer, people like haters in a way, but a lot of people want to help, right? Number one. Number two, because when you start, I also feel that if people love what you do, they will keep on asking you,
Yes.
hey, how's the progress?
Definitely.
Hey, how's things, right? I think that kind of resonates, right? I think because when you start, then suddenly things align.
Doors
by
started
itself.
opening. Right?
Yep. So, but that is on the social impact side. But is there any further challenges when it comes to mental health?
For the company or for creating destigmatizing?
Destigmatizing, yeah.
Of course. When we first started, to venture itself into a mental health industry, when we asked, clinics, we want to digitalize everything, let's do it on the app.
Mm-hmm.
They were all,
Because people are not used to it, right?
yeah. They were just like, no, we don't accept that. Mental health needs to be very face-to-face.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't understand what I understood, which was the barrier.
Yep.
If you were someone like me, where you couldn't move, you really felt like you're in that zone where you just want digital help, you wouldn't go seek help. So it was about creating that lower barrier to entry. And in terms of creating awareness, because we launched during COVID 2020, there were so many influencers who supported us, some for free, and they really believed in the mission and vision that let's create this. So we started off sort of like an NGO, where we just provided the services for free. There were volunteers coming in, the vibers, professionals, counselors coming in, and then they would have the services for free. So it was about really creating that low barrier of entry so people can try. And then when they start trying, they'll be like, actually, this helps
become
me.
habitual, right? Yeah. But so do you feel that kind of COVID situation also helped to grow? Because I do agree in terms of the mental health industry sector, right? Like mental health, counseling, pre-COVID, people still have that stigma. Hey, because I feel like in a westernist country, people already like, hey, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to meet my counselor. It's fine.
Yeah.
But in Malaysia, where are you going? I'm going to meet my counselor. Are you okay?
Yeah,
Is there
I know.
something wrong?
Yeah.
So do you think that COVID period kind of like really helped in a way? I mean, of course, you still need to do a lot more educating because there's still a lot of people in denial of having this issue.
True.
Because sometimes even for me, I will honestly say when I read like, oh, mental health symptom, right? I'm like, hey, I do feel all this, but I feel happy.
Correct.
In a way, I mean, of course, there are times you're
right.
happy, there are times you're sad. So how do you feel in terms of this, the idea of the stigma is still out there? People still don't believe in mental health support, or you feel like now more and more people understand? Because I do know corporate going to be like, hey, PlusVibe, we want to work with you.
Yeah.
But does the employee resonate with what corporate wants?
Good question. So let me talk before COVID, 2018, there was already data about how 14 billion ringgit was lost in terms of GDP due to, mental health issues, employees working well and well, absent, and all those kind of things. So the data was already there. But people didn't believe it. They weren't doing anything about it. Post-COVID now, people are more aware because you see the suicide rate, you see the divorce rate, you see people suddenly coming out and blurting their problems to HR. And that's what HR is facing now. So that's where we get HR coming to us and be like, we're not a counselor.
Yes.
We're not equipped to take care of this. Yes, we can listen, but we kind of sometimes they need professional help.
Agreed.
I'll give you an example of a client the first client we ever had. So we weren't planning to go B2B yet,
Okay.
but they came in, they said we need it. So I was like, so we quickly had to pivot and create a solution for B2B. It was a bank, and they started off with 900 employees, and then it started growing over the years because people were using it. Now, why?
Okay.
People use it when there's the anonymity factor. So meaning they can share their problems without people knowing what their problems are, and because they see the benefit, right? So you get the value, but nobody knows who you are.
Yep.
So that I feel that is one thing that really prevented people from reaching out to a counselor. Right? Because you're ashamed, the
Exactly.
barrier of entry, the cost, all those kind of things. And then you have to wait for an appointment. When it's on demand, you just chat, you can just share. And that's where we see high usage.
Yeah, I do feel, of course, cost is one thing. It's not cheap to meet counselor in Malaysia. Second, because we are such a small community, they might afraid they might bump into each other elsewhere and things like that. That could be an issue, right? So, but in terms of talking as a company, so either you as a founder or your team, is there any specific challenges that you encountered in being like in this mental health space? Either you as a founder or you look at your team member, is there any specific challenges that you have faced so far, last 4 years?
Yeah, of course. I think running a mental health company, people expect your mental health systems and processes to be at its peak.
Yeah.
And for us, what we do is we give once a month free mental health sessions. They get to chat with the vibers. They get all that access, and that's where they take care of their mental health too. For me as a founder, my mental health, of course, there's a challenge to it because you're an entrepreneur that's building a company from scratch. I wouldn't deny saying there are times where I feel at my highest because there are so much demands, and I'm thinking like, okay, let's create awareness here and there. And at times I'm thinking like, okay, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough me time. I don't have enough time for my family. How do I create this balance? But then it goes back to self-awareness. If you are self-aware, you have that whole concept of wheel of life. You measure it on the app. There's one too where you can assess, your love over the months, what is affecting, all those kind of things. And then you think like, oh, okay, how about I allocate 1 day in a week? And you try to create a system that works for you. So every entrepreneur is different, but mental health plays a big role in whether you're able to perform at your best.
Yeah, because being a startup founder is lonely.
Yeah,
so I remember when I
exactly.
started, I do need so of course, to be honest to everyone, I'm not really mental health. I don't use counseling. Maybe I should start. Actually I did tested the app, but when at that time, how I make sure I on the ground, like really try to make sure I'm not having any issue is to have mentors, right? And one of the mentors told me that being a startup founder is lonely because you can't tell your employees that you're struggling because they need to look at you like, oh, my boss is always on a tip-top in a perfect mood. Second, you can't really tell everyone your situation because you want to show to everyone that the startup is doing good, right? So that's why you kind of need that support system. And you mentioned about you have your highs, you have your low. So what do you do as a mental health startup founder if you have your low period? How do you regulate yourself?
Good question. Well, it's also because I'm aware of what to do. Some people don't know what to do. The first is you look back at your physical health. Do you go out for walks, exercise, connect, social connection? So I'm an introvert. So too much social interactions would kind of drain me and I would need to recharge my battery. But what I love to do is go to like places like Desa Park City, read a book, have coffee, relax, really organize my thoughts. When you're at your low, it's often because you have so many things you're thinking about and you haven't had time to organize it, compartmentalize it. And then when I do that, I feel like, okay, I get new inspiration and then I start Googling things, maybe now ChatGPT. There's so many resources that you can access. Another part of it is what you eat. During my lows, before I realized, you want something quick, easy, it's usually fast food. that is not good for you. I mean, if there are any entrepreneurs listening, please stop eating
I mean,
fast food.
now it's less fast food lah
Yeah,
because of the boycott
correct.
thing, right?
Correct.
Which is good,
Which
right?
is good.
Which is good. Which is
But
good.
still, don't opt for other fast food options lah.
I mean, less option lah nowadays.
Yeah.
Less option. Okay.
Because what you put in your body plays a role. I can't convince you enough. Talk to nutritionists, listen to nutritionists, and how they say that what you eat, the nutrients, or if you don't take supplements, or if you do, which I do, then that will influence how your brain works, how's your mood, your level of energy, how you interact with people, and that will determine whether you get opportunities. Imagine you go to a networking event, you just ate any other fast food. Oops, you ate fast food, and you would feel so. The vibe that you would get, you might feel tired, you might feel jittery, you might feel too overhyped because of all the sugary drinks. And then, the connection that you make might not even be meaningful. So it's about really being sustainable in that sense as an entrepreneur.
Actually, that's a good point. No wonder I do feel healthier nowadays, right?
Yeah,
Good
more
point,
salad.
Good point. Yeah, more salad, less fast food.
It's true.
And more walking for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
So because of that now I lost my train of thoughts.
You were like, yes, self-realization.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, this is exactly what we're talking about. But I just want to talk about, so if you guys haven't explored the PlusVibes app, right? It's still the same features, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if you enter, the first thing that one of the first thing you will do is they have this map, this circle, and you can evaluate yourself in terms of where are the areas that you're lacking, right? I think that wheel of life, right? So I think, and that thing I do feel that you have to, not to say do it every day, but maybe once a month.
It's monthly.
Well, it's a monthly thing. I think I tried twice in a way of, I can see the difference between those 2 months is like, oh, this month I do have a lot of, I'm healthy, but maybe lack of involved in feelings or love with families or kids. Contribution and financial. There'll be months I'm having financial struggle. I think that kind of helped to focus, because the next point I'm going to talk about, of course, people always say, I don't have time.
Yeah.
I don't have time to focus it because business need to grow. I remember a startup, there's 2 ways of startup thinking. One would be like, I'm a startup, I don't have weekends. I work 24/7. But there's also another way of thinking of startup is where, yes, I'm a startup, but doesn't mean I have to work over the weekend. Right? So
True.
I think by doing that wheel of life, you kind of will see in this month where you're lacking and where you want to focus on. Like you mentioned about self-awareness, you need to know which area that you need to improve, right? And in terms of, just now you mentioned about yourself, in terms of, okay, what you need to do and things like that. But in terms of, for the last, I would say maybe last 1 or 2 years, right? I've seen you grown a lot. I think the first time I met you was 2 years ago, or maybe 2-3 years ago at Superb Traju. And since then, I've seen you grow your company in a way. What type of, in terms of external support, if people are looking, what type of external support that really grow you? Like programs, or, you don't have to, up to you want to mention the names or not, but throughout the programs that you join, because I know you join multiple as well, what type of support do you feel was really needed for you to grow, especially being a woman in social impact space?
Okay. It was also programs and self-initiatives. 2 things. You can join a program and not get a lot of benefit simply because you didn't have any self-initiative. So one of the programs that really helped me was Superb Traju.
Okay.
And some might say they benefited, some might say not. And for me, it really did, simply because I built the repo. I really tried to connect within the ecosystem. If there was any speaking opportunity, I would offer myself, And it's that kind of visibility that you get with this accelerator program that will create a bigger network. From that network, then it expanded. I started doing speaking engagements, and then the panel speakers that I connected with, those became my mentors. Having the opportunity to even be on the same stage was already a privilege for me.
Yes.
But because you communicate in a way that they felt your value, they felt, okay, I want to be part of this. So most of the co-panelists that I was with are now my mentors. Nice. And whenever I'm struggling, I'm thinking, hey, I'm going through this thing. Can you help me out? Or I tried reaching this person in this organization, but nobody responded. Can you help me out? You build that ecosystem. But it goes back to self-initiative. You can go into so many accelerator programs, but if you are not visible, if you don't really try to extract the value from that program and share your value, any program wouldn't be
I
beneficial.
kind of like that point in a way, because when people join a program, right, the first thing they will say, what can I get from that program?
Correct.
But also in a way, what can that program offer them when they just sit down and
Do
just
nothing.
absorb, right?
Yeah.
But the way you're saying now is actually, yes, you can absorb as many benefit from the program, but it's also how can I leverage them?
Yeah.
Right? I think that's how people should see it, right? If example you join, of course, Superb Traju, I was one of the recipient, and then I involved with a lot of I was involved in the training. I would say they have a lot of what they call it recipient, but not all kind of give back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like get involved, like, hey, how can this program, how can Traju help me?
Correct.
Or how can Magic or Extra Program help me?
Or how can I help Traju as a case
How
study?
can I help? Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I think that's what missing, right? Because you don't get if you don't ask. Right? I think that's something that I feel like it's a good way of thinking. Because I went again, one of the program that I attended, before I attend that program, I asked another person about this. So this is a regional program. And I asked that person, hey, how do you think about this program? I saw you were part of the program last year. Then she's like, oh, it's good. It's a free travel, free food, free accommodation. And that was early stage of startup.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe I should explore. And I do get free trip and travel, right? But after I came back, I haven't decided to become a facilitator for the next session. And after that second session happened, because that was on mental health. So that program was focusing on mental health for founders, because their word was, how can you help others if you don't help yourself? Right? So, and after that second session when I attended, then it bring me back to this conversation I had with my friend, right? Like, why did she didn't enjoy it when I feel it was really helpful for me? So it goes back to whether you're willing to give back or how you can help them, right? Okay, so now go back to PlusVibe. Again, you grow so much, but how do you measure the impact of PlusVibe initiative? Because when you talk about social impact, of course there'll be impact measurement. Everyone can do impact in a business, but if you don't measure, they will just say you're just another typical business, right? How do you measure your impact under PlusVibe, especially when it comes to mental health?
So what we also do is we give free chat sessions. So from those free chat sessions, they would give feedback, whether it helped them or not. Out of that, we collect data. We've supported 900 suicidal individuals.
Wow.
900. And you're thinking, to put that into context, right? In the past 2-3 years, there were 2,000 suicidal people who committed suicide. You see? So 2,000, we helped 900.
Almost half. Wow.
See? So, and when we think about it, we're thinking, why? How did it come to the point where they were looking for free mental health support? It's to that extent where they don't have the financial leverage or the ability to pay for sessions. And then maybe even there are NGOs, but to physically go, maybe they can't. And that's where we feel it makes our Vibers, it makes the whole company feel, wow, we've impacted these people. We've helped saved lives, right? To maybe they, it might have affected their family. It might have affected their relationships. It might have affected their children. Mental health can affect an individual in so many ways. So that's one part of it. Another part of how we measure it is also through how long they use the app. Right? So recently, I spoke to this one student. Well, she was a student. She came out, she Googled us, www.plusvibes.com, and then she was like, contact us. And then she was just like, oh, by the way, can I invite Maddie to give a talk at my university in UiTM Seremban? And I was just like, sure, okay. And then what happened was my team approached her, and then she was like, actually, I've been using PlusVibe since I was in Form 4.
That's nice.
And I was like, Form 4? And she was like, yeah, when you guys first launched.
Yeah, and then she's in uni now, right?
And she said, I love how it motivates me. It shares these articles. There's all these notifications. It makes her feel good. Right? It's not so much like a clinical app, or that you're mentally ill or diagnosed that you have to use the app. It's more that you want to be a better person, you want to be motivated, you want to learn from other people. This is the app for you, that kind of thing. And she's like, I want to advocate it in my university. So that's how we measure how people want to spread this app, and because it's helped them.
Yeah, exactly. And this is sometimes what we call it measurement that it can't put in numbers, but it does give a big impact to its community. Imagine how do you say 5 years down the line, this how my companion tags away, right? Because not all gonna have a boyfriend, girlfriend throughout the whole years, right?
And that's one person. Imagine if there were 50,000
Exactly.
people who
And
said the same thing.
Exactly. These are people who didn't know, like, didn't talk to you
Yeah,
about it,
didn't
right?
even talk to me. Yeah.
I mean, that's I would say, it's tough to measure, but it's more impactful in a way. Okay, that's on how about in terms of, do you face, I mean, you grew up 10 years down the line now, 4 years with PlusVibe. What are the biggest challenges when it comes to being a woman in this entrepreneurship scene?
Well, first of all, tech.
Yeah.
So
Not
to
many,
get tech support, especially to find mentors, women in tech, to find people who have already done it, and someone to look up to or someone you can ask questions. It's hard. The circle is very small, but once you get connected with them, then you build that relationship, because they also know that the circle is small. That's one of the difficulties. So it's having role models, which I feel is very, very important, because then you kind of have that hope, right? That you can get funded. Success stories. You need something. I mean, this is something that I believe you need someone to look up to, whether it's a global figure, whether it's someone who's just starting up, because that gives you inspiration to figure out ways that you can also achieve the same thing. So I think that was one of the challenges. It was finding someone to look up to, role model in the women in tech. Another one, I would say, network. I think in the tech space especially, the network is mainly male dominated. So everyone who's done an app or done software or anything or created deep tech AI, they're all men. So for you to fit in, well, this is part and parcel, I believe and I don't believe, is that, women cannot fit in tech spaces. It's more of, if you have the knowledge, if you're confident, it goes back to self-efficacy, you can just fit in any pool. You go into a room, you have that knowledge, that's all you need. You shouldn't feel inferior that you're a woman and that, everyone is a man there. But that's sort of the perception, and the challenges that prevents women from going into tech.
Yeah, but we talked about it earlier just now, I mean, before this podcast, about there could be a lot of women involved in the tech space, but they are not visible in the forefront, right? I think that's another issue that we are hoping. I mean, not just from this talk or from this. I mean, we just had International Women's Day. In a way, we are hoping more and more women can be upfront. Like, hey, I'm in this space. Hey, I'm like CEO or co-founders. Even I'm from the CTO. I think we need more of that, because I know. I mean, we have girls in tech. We have a lot of organizations trying to build this up, right? And I do agree with you in terms of this network. We need more and more, because at the end of the day, I think knowledge is equal. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or male or female. Now, a lot of this support or education courses are free online, right? But go back to this network ecosystem, right? Have you faced these people who misuse this kind of, like, example, men who want to be helping this woman start up, and then suddenly they just want to be closer, they're not really one helping? Do you face it?
Obviously. Obviously.
Yeah, but how do you tackle that? Because of course you won't be like, hey, I don't want to work with you. But how do you, like, because I know, I mean, this is more like, I'm just trying to get from your experience. And maybe there's other female founders out there who face these kind of challenges, how to say no, how to be like, hey, I know you're not helping me for a good reason in a way. How do you?
So how I try to tackle it. The first one is to always bring my staff. So I always have a team with me where it just, I mean, the more the merrier, right? You get the conversation going. I like the vibe when there's more people. So I sort of use that as an excuse. But it's also so that they learn as well.
Yeah, true.
And when they learn, when they get access to that kind of conversation, it's easier for them to grow. So that's what I like to do. So it's kind of like women supporting women, women empowering other women. How I navigate when I know that it's not really for business, or there's no growth or contribution or collaboration in talks. What I usually say is, okay, I'd like to learn more about it. I share about PlusVibes. I really try to convince them on the value, because sometimes they just cannot see past what they can see. I mean, sadly, but yes. So I think that's a struggle with women. I mean, when I'm part of these women programs, that's honestly the question that you're asking is so valid. They're saying like, I want to get this project and I want to work with this person, but they're not helping me and they're just interested in just maybe buying me, taking me out for lunch or things like that. And that's where I share that you have to show the value. You have to include other women or other partners or your colleagues in that conversation so that the conversation is very direct and clear. If it's just you two, to be honest, you will set yourself in a trap where it's hard for you to navigate. It's just hard. And until today, I still feel that it's hard. So I prefer to have my team so that we're very clear on the vision, the mission. We're meeting up for this. Let's collaborate. Let's be friends. It doesn't mean that we cannot be friends. We can be friends. But it's about growing together and collaborating.
Yep. I mean, I do agree with you on that in terms of in a startup scene, right? It's okay to bring 2 or 3 of your team members because, again, in a startup scene, we can't really, how to call it? We can't
know it all.
really, I mean, know it all is one, but also there's not enough time for us to really train our team members. And so their growth skill.
Correct.
Example, if he already joined as a manager, right? And then after manager is reporting to you directly, how can they grow their knowledge, right? One way is to bring them in for all the meetings, right? Like to learn how to do business, right? I think it won't look like, hey, I'm bringing another person so that this doesn't look like having a catch up during lunch, but it's more like empowering your employees, right?
But to be honest, I have had that mean comment given to me. Oh, are we going to bring a chaperone again?
Well, then you know he's not in for a proper reason of discussion,
But
right?
you see, that is honestly the struggle many women entrepreneurs face. And it's a topic that's not touched simply because it is a sensitive topic. You know, people might say, oh, that's not really the case or these kind of things, but it is a silent struggle that women entrepreneurs face.
Talking about sensitive topic and silent struggle, another one probably, I know people will say, okay, sorry, speaking Malay, boleh lah je buat business sebab dia perempuan, boleh dah dapat sales. I'm pretty sure, I know, have you heard that? But I mean, not you specifically, but I heard when people are doing business, people be like, she got it because, of course, she has the looks, of course, she can easily make sales. I heard that happen to a startup. Have you faced that? If no, I think Alhamdulillah, that's great.
Actually, I haven't.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah lah. But for me, it's more of, because I think it's mental health. So they're thinking like, do I need it or not? That's always their mindset. And that's where, as an entrepreneur, I have to convince them that mental health affects everyone. Any industry, whether you're a startup entrepreneur, whether you're in corporate, whether you're a senior citizen, it affects everyone. So that's where I really have to convince. But so in terms of my sales cycle or sales pitch, it's always about whether they need it or not. And I always try to focus it on that. So I kind of leave no room for the other questions.
I think for me, it's more about breaking the stereotype. And speaking of which, in terms of, do you have a data on PlusVibe, like how many users are male and female?
Good question. So this is something I love sharing, that before it was maybe 70-80% female. Up until last year.
Okay.
Last year, it was 51% male.
Wow.
I know. And I'm thinking like, wow. But I'll share with you the type of challenges that men face: financial, family. Some of them are really working overtime. They have a 9-to-5 job and then they continue working as Grab. Some of them have a born baby, so they cannot cope. You know, they're really struggling financially. Some of them are working offshore. You see the type of struggles. It's different than female struggle, which is usually relationship or, you know, demotivation, confidence. But for men, it's the provider kind of struggle, where sometimes they don't want people to worry. So they don't share with their partner. They don't share with their family. And then they keep it all inside. When they start looking for us and they chat, they're like, wow, okay, at least it gave me a different perspective. Because we do have male vibers as well. So they know the same type of struggles.
Because sometimes I feel like men just not
acknowledge
or accustomed to sharing, right? Like you mentioned the word just now, we try to make sure that everything looks normal, we look strong, but we don't know what's struggling that we're facing, right? And I think we need to break this stereotype again in terms of, like we call it, a struggle is a struggle. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, a struggle is a struggle. Because example one post about like why when men bring the kids out or take care of, change the kids' diapers, the napper, then will be like, oh, so cute. But when women did it, like, yeah, your mother, of course you have to do it, right? I think you have to break that stereotype. If it's a struggle, it's a struggle, right? Okay, we are almost at the end of the session. I think it was really nice to talk about this stereotyping in terms of women entrepreneurship, talking about mental health. But for you, right, I mean, the struggle you faced, the journey that you faced for the last 10 years, 4 years, different businesses, any hopes and aspiration for future aspiring women entrepreneurs out there?
I think it's really to find something you are really passionate about, because that's the number one thing. If you go into a business where you feel that there's a market need, but you're not truly passionate about it, you will tend to pivot, right? So you have to be connected to it. The second is that you have to know that as a woman entrepreneur, you have strengths, right? You have the strengths. You have that empathy. You're charismatic. You have communication skills. You are more focused on social impact, which many women are. Use those strengths, right? Don't focus so much on the weakness of maybe, you are not confident in this industry, or maybe, you want to do an app, but you don't know how. There are a lot of support systems available. It's whether you want to achieve it or you want to put yourself out there to be visible so that people can help you or not.
Yep, exactly. I think spot on. Look at your strength. Don't be worried about the barrier and weakness. Just focus on your strength. I think, again, in this entrepreneurship, there's no one size fit all.
True.
Everyone have their own way of doing things, or how the journey pans out. Like you had your business. Surprisingly, you're studying PhD on employability and mental health. And what's next is now you're running a mental health startups. Good for you. All right, that's all for today. Thank you so much, Madiha, for today's session on ASBhive Podcast Impact Series. Do follow our social media, follow our website for more updates. And thank you again. Bye.